Thank you, everybody, for coming. I need a couple of volunteers from the audience. People sitting here and people sitting here. Don't let me walk any further. Okay? When I rehearse this talk, I have a lot of options for where I can rehearse at home. And if I can walk this far, I will go really long. So I've been told I can go a little long, but I don't want to go really long. People have a lot of questions about getting older, and I'm going to make you think about those questions. I don't necessarily have answers. I think what really matters is that you think about questions. And I almost messed with my slides last night. Understand, my slides are locked like a month before a conference. But when every television channel wants to talk about how somebody finally decided he was too old and had to stop doing something he loved doing, that's a little on the nose, for what I have planned with us today. Because that's one of the questions, like, will I have to retire when I don't want to? Some of us are facing questions like that, and they're not entirely always happy. But I must start. Look at, I went through a lot of stuff and I've gathered up some advice for y'all. It's pretty good for me, so I want to share it. But people leave this industry. And when they're gone, we don't see them. So there used to be a trope that real programmers consume a lot of caffeine. Familiar with this trope, right? Coke, Diet Coke, coffee. Programmer is a device for converting caffeine into code. Frankly, I think a lot of us are self-medicating our ADHD, but we used to tease people who didn't drink caffeine, tell them they weren't real programmers. Now, if you do that and that person decides, yeah, I'm not a real programmer, and they leave, and everyone who stays drinks a lot of caffeine, and you think that's the truth, but it's not the truth. Some people left. Survivor bias is when you measure people who have survived something and say, that's what we're like. And it isn't necessarily what we're like at all, okay? And there are people who are aging but are not programmers. And there are people for whom that's happy, but there are lots of people for whom that is sad. And I would like to prevent that. Okay, that's not me. That's all that matters. I am an aging programmer, but I didn't just decide to talk to you for an hour and a half about what I've been through. I did a survey. Hands up if you did my survey. Very few people in here, but hundreds of people the world over did my survey, for which I'm extraordinarily grateful. And if you're watching on the video, thank you. I went out and found articles and studies and papers, and a lot of them surprised the heck out of me. So I'm going to share some of that with you. And I talked to people who are aging programmers and who are not. But that doesn't mean that this is all right for you, so please, you have judgment, you have wisdom, you have capability, you make your own choices. Please don't feel guilty because I said you should do a thing and you don't want to do it. It's a real picture from earlier this year. 88, that's my mother, retired from a technical career. She has a science PhD. She worked in aerospace, very technical person. And me, not retired, thank you, not retiring. But some of you are going to be, well, I'm not 88 and 63. I'm never going to be 88, though, you may be thinking. There are things you can do in your 50s, in your 40s, in your 30s, and in your 20s that will give you a happier and healthier old age and let you work longer. Most of the resources you're going to want to draw on in your 60s, 70s, 80s are resources you lay down now. So the younger you are, the more time you have to get things in place. I've found a bunch of quotes. Yeah. They say, like, getting old's not so bad when you consider the alternative. Tom Petty's not getting older anymore. But that's the deal. We don't all get old. I faced this 7 years ago, right? I had a few months to live. here I am. I get calls all the time from little companies that had one person who knew their code base. And sometimes they've retired. But usually if you retire, there's planning, right? When I get the call, it's usually because they've died. So I know very well that sometimes people just die. You have to face that. If you're lucky enough not to die, you may not get to keep programming. And, like yesterday's newscasts, sometimes you have to step away from something that you did not want to step away from. It's wonderful if you had all your ducks in a row and had a great plan and now you're going to retire, freedom 55, but sometimes it's not a choice. And sometimes people decide to have a different job in their 50s, in their 60s, and beyond, which is possibly wonderful. But the number of people I know whose different job is literally driving Uber, I don't think that was their childhood dream, right? So I'm not going to give you a zillion graphs of all my survey results. I use them really to decide what to talk about and what order to talk about them in. I talked about body problems and then mind problems. And I was quite surprised with the body results. 3/4 of you were concerned and very concerned about your eyes. I'm like, isn't that a solved problem? What? Okay, so we'll talk about eyes. Aches and pains. When Karen mentioned aches and pains, I have a slide in here. The header is aches and pains. It's a thing, man. People are worried that their bodies will hurt. And people are worried about physical stamina, being able to run up flights of stairs with everybody else. For your minds, surprising me again, mood things, being motivated and feeling cynical, number one concerns. So I'm going to talk about body stuff for quite a long time, but I want to lead with this. You see, there's a saying, how do you get a beach body? Take your body to the beach, right? Not everything about your body is a problem with your body. People told me in the survey and other ways that they have an optional mobility aid, let's say a cane or a brace, and when they use it, they apparently lose 30 IQ points. People told me that doctors don't talk to me if I have my mobility aid, they talk to the person accompanying me. Is that a body problem? Right? Like, not really, right? That's another people problem. If you are in your 20s, you may not really understand the can't drive at night thing. I got a bunch of slides on can't drive at night because it's very real. And if you live here or anywhere north of here, you have to drive at night in the winter, right? I mean, if you work 9 to 5 and you drive to work. But again, is that a problem with your eyes or a problem with the fact that you drive to work? I haven't explored this building, but there are lots of modern buildings that have clever layouts like all the offices are on this floor, all the meeting rooms are up a flight of stairs, all the bathrooms and the coffee room are down a flight of stairs, and you're up and down stairs, and there are lots of like triathlon type people who are like, this is great, I'm getting my steps, it's always leg day at the office. And there's some folks who wish it wasn't always leg day at the office, right? And if your knee or your ankle or your overall fitness make that a problem for you, again, is that a body problem or an environment problem? It's easy to think I'm too old for this work when you're really just too old for this workplace. That's not the same thing at all. But I said I'd start with eyes because people are really worried about your eyes. Okay, let's talk. There are these people who check your eyes. True story. You go to them, and they'll check your eyes for you. And there are even times when it will be covered by OHIP. It is normal to get short-sighted as you get older. I love this word presbyopia because I'm a word nerd. And Presbyterians, that presby means elders. And presbyopia is that your eyes are old. And when I was a kid, I was so long-sighted. I was the one who watched for the sign or watched for the landmark if we were sailing somewhere or whatever. And now I have to correct my vision. You don't have to start by going to an eye doctor. You can go to the drugstore or the grocery store, and for $20, and it's a lot less if you want to get a bunch on Amazon, but start, you get these, people call them cheaters, people call them readers. It's just a single magnification, nothing clever, nothing prescription. And here's how you try one on. You pick up the lowest, they're multiplies, 1.25, 1.52. Put one on, and then go grab a bottle of like vitamins from the shelf right next to you and try to read it. Okay, if you can read it, this is the correct cheater for you. If you can't, go up a size. And that's a $20 problem. Now you can read bottles, you can read instructions, you can read all those fiddly little things that you otherwise wouldn't be able to see. Eventually, you'll need real official glasses that work at a distance. Cheaters and readers are called that because they really only work. Computer screen, book, menu, that kind of thing. So you'll have to go see an optometrist in order to be able to drive. It's an easy way to tell when you need to do that is when you're not reading the signs soon enough, right? Just you have to get close to the sign to read it, and then you go past it. Okay, you need to get some glasses. And it's perfectly normal to have different glasses for different things. Someone in my house has like TV glasses, computer glasses, phone glasses, book glasses, and leaves them all over the place. Where are my glasses? Oh, there's some on the table. No, those are the wrong ones. But it is normal and correct to have lots of different kinds of glasses. And my grandchildren think the glasses grant the ability, right? So if I'm going to read them a book, I got to put on my reading glasses. These glasses enable you to read. When Chloe found out I had driving glasses, she got very excited. And when you talk to people who get their eyes corrected, they tell you things like, wow, I was just plagued by headaches. I was chewing painkillers. Now I don't have my mystery headaches anymore. I'm not confused and puzzled and I can't read the slide or I can't read the this or I can't read the that. Some of your cognitive effort is lifted off of you because you can actually just read what's in front of you. And we communicate with our environments constantly by reading. I'm a person who walks into a room and reads what's on the whiteboard, reads everything. You would really enjoy being in an airport with me. I've been in an airport with friends of mine on business trips, and they're like, where's the whatever? And I know. I'm like, how do you know that? I'm like, hello, there's signs everywhere. Do you not see these? I read them all. Not everybody does. And programming related, some of you are bumping your font and bumping your font and bumping your font. And when you get glasses, we can go back to getting pages and pages of code on the screen, and that's got to be worth it. I mentioned driving at night. This is a real thing. It can happen as soon as your 50s, and it has to do with the contrast and the glare and the difference between the dark outside and the light inside, along with smearing on the windshield and things like that. And it's been a problem for me my whole life because I have something called a pale retina. There are tricks and devices that are supposed to work. They do not work. In many cases, the glasses actually make it worse by taking away what little light there is. That's not an option. If you have early cataracts, and remember you're going to the optometrist regularly and they'll baseline you for things like that, then getting your cataracts fixed will also help your night driving problem. But most people, that's not the issue. So contrast changes is the real big problem. And the worst thing you can do is look at something inside the car that's all lit up, like your big 10-inch touchscreen that runs the whole car, and then look back out into the darkness. Right? Much better if you stick your hand out to fix the heat or fix the radio without having to look at a screen or push a little teeny triangle 6 times precisely. Choose your car carefully if you're starting to get into that zone of your life. If you know any old people who are fusspots, right? Everything has to be just right, and they constantly like cleaning their windshield, cleaning their headlights. It does help to have a very clean windshield, inside and out, and to keep your glasses clean, to keep your headlights clean, and all of that. And weirdly, vitamin A, eat your carrots. It'll help your eyesight. That's what we were told when we were this size. Well, carrots are a good source of vitamin A, and it won't help your eyesight in terms of like presbyopia or astigmatism, but it does help with this. Okay, so specifically with these contrast issues and glare issues, eat a rainbow. It doesn't have to be carrots. Anything red, yellow, dark green will genuinely help your vision. And remember, we talked about an environment problem. Like, could you leave at 3 and then put in another couple hours at home after driving home in the light? Maybe that's the difference between still being able to work and not being able to work. I'm starting to think about a post-driving life. It won't be for a while yet, but it will be. And I live on what for a long time was a gravel road and is still in the middle of nowhere. Like, there's nowhere on my property that you can see exactly another house. There's one place where you can see someone's porch railing. That's it. And that's only if you go stand at the end of my driveway. I have to drive everywhere, everywhere. And that won't work if I can't drive. So we're thinking now about where are we going to move in 10 years when we can't drive anymore. I wish this next bit was not true. Like, can't we just all have happy, healthy, strong bodies without any of that dumb exercise crap? Turns out it helps, which is so unfair. It helps with aches and pains. It helps with being able to go up and down the stairs to the coffee in the bathroom and the meeting rooms. It helps with your ability to pick things up off the floor if you drop them or to reach the top shelves of things. It helps your immune system and your mood, and not because you feel proud of yourself for exercising, for chemical reasons, which I will share with you. And it helps you to learn and remember. So here's another quote. You think you don't have time for exercise? Make time for being sick. This is a British politician. I wish it was Stanley Cup Guy, but Stanley Cup Guy is his little brother, so I'll take it. However, just as you can't say, well, you got to get nutrition. Like, that's not a thing. There's no bottle that says nutrition on it, right? There's protein, there's vitamin C, there's vitamin A, different foods give you different things. Same deal with exercise. Not all exercises will give you this list of benefits I just went through. Typically, there are some exercises for strength and some for stamina. They're very different. For flexibility and balance, having guns, and losing weight. And I'm not going to talk to those two at all. Visible muscles is a personal decision, like how long your hair is. And losing weight, as you get older, your doctor does not want you to lose weight. Okay? Let me tell you, my oncologists were very unhappy when I lost weight and super happy when I gained it back. Okay? BMI is racist nonsense. But even if you're in the demographic that they measured it on, you will be healthier to be in what BMI calls overweight than what they call normal. So even by their own rules, go for overweight, not normal. And the third thing I'm not really going to cover very much is getting better, like improving your tennis backhand or something. Right? It's another reason people exercise, to get better at a particular thing. You should know your goals. That can help you decide what exercises you would like to do. So we'll start with strength, because strength is probably, if you can only do one thing, exercising for strength would be the one thing to do. And the way you do it is you do a small number of hard things. And like small is like 5 or 10. Pick something up, put it down. Okay? These are body weight exercises, squats, planks, push-ups. Do 10 where when you're counting, you go, 10, and you're pretty sure you couldn't do 11. Now, this isn't to failure. People trying to get big muscles will actually go until they physically fall over and cannot do the last one. It's not that, but it's to where you kind of feel you couldn't do another one, okay? If you're able to do this 3 minutes, 3 times a day, and each one of them is about a minute, you will see an observable difference in your strength. But some people are going 10 push-ups. I can't do 1 push-up. And that's legit. I know what room I'm in. I also cannot do 1 push-up because I get pain in my wrists. But you can use physics to make exercises easier. So for years, I thought that a push-up where your hands were up in the air, like say on a table, was harder because all the ads showed women doing that. And I thought, oh, they're doing hard push-ups. No, that's easier. Okay? Because for angles, if you're trying to go from flat to just a little bit above flat, you're using all your weights on your arms. If you're going from 45 degrees to a little bit more, a lot of your weight's on your feet, okay? So that's an easier push-up. If you do push-ups on the stairs and you find the time to do it 3 times a day, you will literally find that you need to go down a stair and make it a little harder because you have gained strength, okay? It's a real thing. And you can do all of these things in an assisted way. You can hold on to the couch while you're doing your squats and things like that, and then make it harder as you get stronger. Most people aren't going to be able to do it 3 times a day, but it takes no time to do 5 to 10 push-ups. You can do it while you're waiting for a meeting to start as long as your camera's off. The thing about strength is this is where you will be independent. In your 80s, can you carry your laundry? Can you carry your milk? Can you carry things with one hand because you need a hand for the railing or your cane? Can you open jars? If you do not have strength, other people have to do stuff for you. And that could start a lot younger than 80. We lose muscle mass if we don't do anything about it. If you build a habit of building muscle mass, you will be very grateful later. But also, turns out a big chunk of our immune system is in our muscles. I didn't believe it. I thought that was unfair, but I've looked into it, and it's true. The more strength you have, the better you recover from infections and illnesses. Not all strength exercises are weight-bearing. For example, I swim. That's not a weight-bearing exercise. But if you do a weight-bearing exercise, you are also strengthening your bones. And that matters because breaking a bone past a certain age is fatal. Stronger people live longer. They did a study where they measured hand grip strength, your ability to squeeze a thing. The people with weak grips were 50% more likely to die in the following year. And they were like, what? I know, quick, find the squeezy balls. So here's why. Lots and lots of reasons. First of all, that independence. If you have a really weak grip, you can't open things, you can't carry things, you can't hold your walker or your cane so you don't get up much. There's a ton of things you don't do when your grip gets to really weak. But also, most exercises require you to use your hands to do the exercise. If you're doing push-ups or pull-ups or picking up weights, then you're using your hands. You have a strong grip. So people who have strong grips generally have other strength as well. It's a good proxy, okay? But working on being physically strong is the number one thing you can do to not just live longer, but have that be a happy and useful and enjoyable time for you. A lot of people were worried about stamina. They said it was embarrassing if a bunch of people were all running upstairs 2 at a time and they were not. To build your stamina, you got to get out of breath. That could be running upstairs, it could be walking fast. It's not lifting one thing for 5 seconds and putting it down, right? Totally different. The government would like you to do 20 minutes a day, 150 minutes a week. If you do that, you're golden. There doesn't seem to be any benefit from going beyond that. Most of us are not going to do that, but if you are able to ride your bike to work or walk briskly to work and there's a bunch of stairs along the way, you're set. Sustained aerobic meaning you're breathing hard, right? When you lift, you're holding your breath. Aerobic is when you're breathing while you're doing it. Adult neurogenesis means making new neurons in your brain, also known as learning. Okay? People who exercised learned better. And mild cognitive impairment is a step on the way to being demented, having dementia. And moderate exercise, which is the stuff that makes you breathe hard, even in later life, reduced your chances of progressing to mild cognitive impairment. And physical exercise improved cognitive functions. We're not talking about preventing, we're talking about making it better now in people over 50, regardless of where they started. And resistance meaning weights, and aerobic meaning something that makes you breathe. Then we have these chemicals. I told you your mood is improved. You may have heard of some of these: myokines, dopamine, noradrenaline, serotonin. I love serotonin. They make us feel happy and they improve our ability to learn, which makes sense. Like if you're a hunter-gatherer and you've just chased an antelope or something, you will want to be in a very receptive thing to learning. What worked, what didn't work. It would be really dumb if that like shut your brain off and you couldn't learn. That's when learning is necessary, is sometime when you're aerobicing, right? When you're sitting around the campfire, you can learn or not, it's up to you. So it makes sense that we're wired up to learn better after working hard and while working hard. Now, this is not a treadmill desk, okay? Sorry for everyone who has a treadmill desk, because you're not huffing and puffing. That's the point, that you're serene, yeah? And that's great. Like if you want to lose weight, have shapely legs, go for it, but it's not going to help your stamina. You've got to get huffy and puffy for stamina. Now, you can gain strength by having just a real active life where you do things that require your muscles, and you can gain stamina by having a real active life. But for flexibility and balance, you're going to need to exercise. And I know a lot of people don't approve of exercise. They're like, I'll have an active life. I do this thing over here, and it's good exercise, the noun, but I don't want to do exercise, the verb, because it's pointless. The only reason I'm doing it is to move. And I'm like, yes, that is correct. It's like when you brush your teeth, the only reason you're doing that is to get your teeth clean. If you build a practice now, it will carry with you later. Because eventually, your world will shrink if you don't do this. Think about the oldest person you know. Can they use their top shelf in their kitchen? Can they use their bottom cupboard in their kitchen? Like their world is literally shrinking. And if you trip, can you stick out a hand and grab the railing? Can you get your other foot forward? Can you get your core muscles to pull you back into balance? A lot of times people get hurt because of how they reacted to the trip, the slip, the bump, that they couldn't fix it and save themselves like they could when they were younger. And practicing reaching high, going low, leaning over and then straightening up again, standing on one foot, it builds muscles, it builds muscle memory, it builds practices that will help you. I taught stretching exercises to my mother, who, as I've mentioned, is 25 years older than me, and is very much in the exercise is stupid faction. And we went out in the morning in our pajamas, did 5 or 10 minutes of stretching, and she said, "That was nice. That felt good. Isn't exercise supposed to be awful?" And I'm like, well, 20 squats is not pleasant, right? That hurts, but everybody likes to stretch. Think about a cartoon character who wakes up in the morning and has a big yawn and a big stretch, and then you feel good. You're like, oh, that feels better. That's stretching, flexibility, and balance exercises. They are not feel the burn, okay? They're pleasant. And if I do them in the morning, I feel better all day. It's 5 minutes, probably the best 5 minutes of some days. And you don't have to officially do yoga, right? You don't have to officially do Tai Chi. You don't have to learn a routine. A little bit of how far can I get my hand from my shoulder? How far can I get my ankle from my hip? Stand on one leg, maybe lean around a bit. You're golden. Maybe you don't want to worry about when you're 88. But a lot of people have retirement plans, things they don't have time to do right now. Some of them are fairly sedentary. I will learn to paint watercolors. But others are pretty active. We're going to ride our bikes around Tuscany and drink a lot of wine. We're going to have a 10-acre garden or a 1-acre garden, and I'm out there every day, wheelbarrows full of dirt, digging, pulling, pruning, reaching. I'm going to walk the Trans-Canada Trail or Office Dyke or the Saint-Catherine, whatever. I'm going to do this famous walk or sail. These things have physicality to them. If you're working 10 or 12 hours a day, if you're working weekends, if you are a cortisone soup because you're nothing but stress molecules all day long, maybe you will never be able to do that. You finally have the money, you finally have the time, and you realize, I can't ride a bike for an hour. Never mind 8 hours a day throughout Tuscany. Start doing those things now. Maybe ride your bike every other weekend for 3 or 4 hours. It'll keep you in shape. It'll remind you what muscles you need to do it, and at least you'll get something. Right? Don't go 0 and then plan for a ton later and then like, oops, sorry, haha, body won't do it. Do some now, and it'll make you motivated and able to do it later. I know you don't have time. You can work stuff out with employers. This is another thing that helps us to know. You only get 2 weeks vacation a year. Okay, can you save one and have 3 weeks next year? Can you take an unpaid leave for a month? If you're freelancing, can you take a gap between contracts? These are ways to give yourself the time for things that cannot be done on a weekend. Wrist problems. It's a real programmer issue, man. This is how we make our living, and what if we can't do this? Hands up if you sleep like this. Yeah, hands are happening. I used to do that. Both hands just jammed up under my chin, using my own body weight to hold them like that, and just stretching these tendons and ligaments just as much as you possibly can. I don't know why I found that comfortable, but I did. Someone told me, stop doing that, and my wrist problems evaporated. Like once a year, I have a sore wrist for a day. That's it. But it was really bad. And I've had other people who've had wrist problems and are buying braces, and I'm like, put your hands like flat under your pillow as you're falling asleep, and don't curl up like that. And for a lot of people, that's all it takes. And it might be all it takes for you. If that's not enough, you can get braces. If you get a brace, you'll discover they say, wear this when you're sleeping to keep your wrists straight. It's not so much for when you're actually programming or doing that work. Scott Hanselman says you only have a certain number of keystrokes in your wrist. You don't know how many there are, but there is a limit. Do not waste any on people who are wrong on the internet. Okay? It's good advice. It's good advice for more than just your wrists, but do it for your wrists, okay? I'm not going to necessarily be able to persuade you to do it for your heart. Do it for your wrists. Yeah, sure. If you want a different mouse, if you want a different keyboard, if you want a trackball, if you want to use text-to-speech or speech-to-text, like cool. But honestly, the most important thing is sleep with your wrists flat and don't type so much when you don't need to. Aches and pains. Getting older hurts. And not just literally, it also hurts metaphorically. But sticking with literally for a minute, they make these things called painkillers. And I know a lot of people who like, oh yeah, I have a terrible headache, or my shoulder's killing me, or my knee's really bad today. And I'll offer them a painkiller, and they're like, oh no, I don't want a crutch. Well, first of all, if you needed a physical crutch, I would offer you a physical crutch. That would be the smart thing to do, to take your weight off your knee, okay? Painkillers take away pain. But here's a weird thing. There's about a dozen drugs that are paradoxically associated with better aging outcomes. And literally, the people studying them do not know why. One of them is a drug that's given to people with type 2 diabetes called metformin. People who take metformin age better than people who take different type 2 diabetes drugs, and in some cases than people who don't have type 2 diabetes, although you might argue they're just not being treated for it. But even after accounting for like underlying diseases, the people on metformin are aging better. Weirdly, one of these paradoxical drugs is Viagra. I'm not going to say any more about that. But the one I want to talk about here is naproxen, which is an anti-inflammatory over-the-counter as a Aleve. Okay? And it is associated with aging better. Not for the reasons you might first guess. Maybe it's inflammation. Maybe we all have a lot of low-level inflammation, and if you're taking anti-inflammatories for pain, you're giving the rest of your body a bit of a break for a few hours. Just telling you, don't take it like as a preventative, oh, I'm taking vitamin N. I know a lot of runners, they call ibuprofen vitamin I. But if you are actually in pain, especially from a joint, taking an anti-inflammatory is a smart thing to do. back to exercise, the number one fix for joint and muscle pain is to exercise that joint and those muscles. And I wish that wasn't true, but it is. Okay? And flexibility exercises to improve your range of motion in those joints. Yep, equipment. If you've got the ability, a lot of us are working from home now in like whatever rando chair no one else was using in our house. Like it's not even the best chair in the house, right? It's the available chair in the house. And we put the laptop on our lap, on the couch, on the dining room table. If that's you, have a desk and a chair. You don't have to buy a $1,000 chair, but have a real chair. Hearing. Hearing is a problem. When you've only lost a little bit of hearing, you kind of step back a bit sometimes. Let other people talk. You can't quite follow the conversation. You miss something, but you're fed up of asking people to repeat, so you just, oh, well, I guess I didn't hear it. And even not going places because it's going to be noisy and I won't be able to follow. It's a real issue. So, just like your eyes, get your hearing checked. You cannot get it back. You can wear hearing aids. My son works for a hearing aid company. There's lots of software in that, as it turns out. And interestingly enough, when I tell people that, I find out an awful lot of people are wearing hearing aids, and I had no idea. You can totally get hearing aids, and they will aid you. The clue is in the name. And they're not just louder, right? They're actually, for example, optimized for conversation over background noise, and they can be tuned by language. My son speaks about 10 languages, which turned out to be a very unexpected benefit to his employer. Really, you have to prevent the loss. That means staying away from loud noises and plugging your ears when you can't stay away from loud noises. I wear earplugs on planes, I wear earplugs on trains, anytime I don't really need to hear what's going on. And you know when you turn your phone volume up and the stupid thing comes up about if it's too loud, you could damage, you just get rid of that. Listen to that, okay? Do not turn your headphones up to 11 and blast noise into your ears, because then you will have your ears for a good time, but not a long time.
May I for a moment?
Yeah.
I'm 75. I've had hearing aids for over 50 years. I should have had them earlier than that. So, a little bit of experience, yeah, all the things you said here. Don't wait to think to the time when you think you need hearing aids. Get your hearing tested.
Thank you, Rudd.
At age 50, get a test. You want that baseline. And then every 5 years, get a test again to see if it's changing. Just like we do performance testing on our software.
Absolutely. Yes. Get your
Get that
hearing tested.
Then catch it early, because when your hearing goes, your brain loses the ability to process language. And it's very difficult to get it back, because at that age, your brain is not malleable.
Thank you. Thank you. A testimonial, okay? Everybody, get your phones out. Ears checked. Get it done. People also, this one's stratified by age. People in their 20s were like, infection? Who cares? Illness? What's that? It's kind of weird given these unprecedented times and all that. But look at, this is what you're going to die of. Okay? Everyone I know who died over 90, 100%, died of a respiratory infection. And if you fall and you break something, oh man, you lose your mobility, you lose your independence, you literally can't get out of bed depending on what you broke. It's very common to die within a year of breaking a bone. You do not want these outcomes. So, the stronger you are, the less likely you are to fall, and less likely you are to fall hard, and more likely you are to have an immune system that will help you to recover from any injuries sustained. But it's again about preventing. Sensible shoes. Not being embarrassed about your shoes, or about the fact you like to have a hand on the rail, or about the fact you would rather not run right here. Also, vaccinations. You know you're supposed to get a tetanus shot every 10 years? Well, it's not, we call it a tetanus shot, but it's actually the Tdap, which is 4 different diseases that if you have a small child, you may recognize. Oh, and if you don't have a small child, that's what used to be the DPTP. Okay? And the T in DPTP and in Tdap is tetanus, but you're also getting other diseases as well. Mask in crowds, mask when you're sick, that's just polite, okay? But mask when you're going to be around a lot of people. And although it doesn't make any difference for COVID, it makes a difference for a ton of other things. Wash your hands a lot. We wiped out a strain of flu by that hand washing thing that we all did in 2020. There's an entire strain of flu that's gone. And I started wiping down planes. I have these little travel wipes, and I get on the plane and I wipe the seat back, the tray table, the arm things, the seat belt. Sometimes that wipe is gross. But I don't get conference crud anymore. I no longer come home from conferences sick because I clean planes. And regular checkups, regular screenings. Look, I know in Ontario, a lot of us don't have a family doctor. Find a way, get on a list. You should be getting checked and screened. Maybe you have to drive an hour to your doctor. Lots of people have to drive an hour to their doctor. It's better than not driving an hour to your doctor. Yeah, people giggle a little. That's part of the point. Look, half of us are going to go through this. And it can start in your 40s. And that means it can go on for a long time. And I'm not going to tell you how to deal with it. I'm just going to tell you this. It's not funny. You know, how many feminists does it take to change a light bulb? 1, and it's not funny. The person who's going through menopause can joke about menopause all they want. But your brilliant comment about, oh, are you having a hot flash? It's not okay. And in fact, blushing, which is a normal human response to feeling embarrassed by someone pointing attention to your medical condition, will turn that, if it is a hot flash, into something that's physically, literally painful. Okay? So keep your clever quip to yourself. And if you have a chance to be setting policies, there are policies that make menopause harder that have mostly been set by people who never thought about this. Dress codes. Should be able to wear what I want and take layers off if I need to take layers off. And a very common and not talked about menopause problem is sleep issues, insomnia and sleep disturbances. And so if you have absolutely rigid office hours, that's very hard for someone who's having trouble with their sleep. And a little flexibility will go a really long way here. Never occurred to you? Okay, now it can have occurred to you. Healthy habits. In your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s, what should you be doing so that you can be the healthy 90-year-old? Do not smoke. Sunscreen. Hello, I had melanoma, and I wear 110 sunscreen because, look, I'm practically transparent, and I always wear hats. And I generally wear long sleeves as well and long pants. Long flowing things cool you as well as protecting you from the sun, and they don't wear off, drip off, run out of time. The big thing about hats is they also protect your eyes, okay? And sunscreen will not protect your eyes from UV. But be that person who covers up in the sun, because while I survived melanoma, lots of people don't. If you're going to drink a little poison every day, don't drink a lot of poison every day. Okay? Water is good, but not, you know, there's people who got like apps on their phone, ding, time to drink a liter of water. Don't do that. When I was pregnant the first time, my doctor said to me, eat when you're hungry, drink when you're thirsty, rest when you're tired. And I gave this little laugh. Like, why would you tell me such a dumb thing? And she's like, you know you don't do that. Nobody does that. If you're in a meeting and you're hungry, you're like, well, I can eat when the meeting is over. If you're debugging something and you're thirsty, you're like, when I find this, I will drink something. I totally will. I totally will. And when you're tired, you're like, sleep is for losers. If you listen to your body, eat when you're hungry, drink when you're thirsty, rest when you're tired, you'll get enough water. You'll get enough hydration. And by the way, those people who tell you that coffee and tea and whatnot don't count, like, you know they're totally wrong. First of all, we all have a relative who doesn't drink anything that doesn't have caffeine in it, right? They just drink like tea all day. They're alive. Clearly, that liquid counts, okay? Caffeine and alcohol are mild diuretics, but they don't cancel out the liquid that they came in. Veggies. In the 60s and 70s, there was a ton of studies about how vitamin C was going to enable us all to live forever. There was wonderful studies about cancer and bones and respiratory infections, you name it. The more vitamin C you ate, the healthier you were. And they started with studies where they just asked people what they ate and did the math and said, wow, the people who eat a lot of vitamin C are healthier. And then they switched to studies where they gave people fruits and vegetables and said, eat these. And those people got healthier quickly, measurably. Wow. Then we invented vitamin C pills. And suddenly about 3/4 of the studies wouldn't reproduce. Some people, some particular conditions, there was still a benefit to vitamin C, but a lot of it seemed to disappear. And that's because what had been laid at the altar of vitamin C really belonged to fiber. And if you get your vitamin C by eating fruits and veggies, you're getting fiber. And if you're eating a rainbow, you're also getting vitamin A. Like, there's a lot of good stuff happening here. So eat vegetables, eat fruit. 5 to 10 servings a day, they say, but a serving is like half an apple. Okay, especially if it's one of those Honeycrisp apples that's the size of a toddler's head. You don't necessarily have to eat 10 apples a day to get your fruits and veg. Ultra-processed food is a vague word, but I think we can agree that a carrot is not an ultra-processed food, right? A pork chop is not an ultra-processed food, but like a hot dog is, right? Did it come from a factory? Well, some things that come from a factory have like one ingredient, like a can of kidney beans is not really an ultra-processed food, although it has been processed. But a hot dog, most factory-made cookies, Pringles. I mean, even ordinary potato chips are less processed than Pringles, right? Which is like mashed up and sprayed back out. And there's early work showing that the more ultra-processed stuff you eat, the less healthy you are. Now, some of that is because of who has to reach for what and who can afford what. So it's going to take a while to unpick. But try to eat a variety of foods in as close to their natural state as possible. For myself, my life got a lot healthier when I aimed for 21 meals a week that were cooked by someone who loves me, which can be me. Don't work too hard. You know, they say, no one ever says on their deathbed, I wish I'd spent more time at the office. But it's good advice. Those people who died, they got replaced pretty quick. You know, so work, but don't overwork. And don't obsess about any of this. Moderation in all things, including moderation. Let's talk about other people again. See this? Well, he's quit now, but this was July. And boy, this made a lot of people real mad. Joe Biden does not use a walker. He can walk just fine. But they chose this representation. And the first wave of Twitter anger was like, hey, a lot of people who use walkers are quite young, thank you, and can think just fine. I'm like, are you hearing yourself? Like, it's okay to say that an 80-year-old can't think, but you're mad because you got lumped in with the 80-year-olds? This is a crappy cover. But other people are out there, and they do assume that the older you get, the less you know. These are some things people told me in the survey. People just assume you can't learn stuff. You can't be the one who's going to lead the, I don't know, move to Git or whatever, because you'd have to learn a thing and that'd be too awful. Pressure to move to management comes from management, it comes from coworkers, it comes from family members, it comes from next door neighbors. How come you're still a code monkey, right? Number of people told me this. This is the one I happened to quote. The hiring process stopped once they saw the gray hair. And good old, you wouldn't be a culture fit. We know what that means. And it's worse for women. Men and women alike told me this, that men at least occasionally get to reach out for distinguished and experienced and senior, and women do not. Generally worse in a corporate situation. If you're in a very small company, you're not so much the old one and you're more Kate or whoever, right? However, small companies tend not to have a technical ladder, a place for you to be an individual contributor. So you may find yourself going to a corporate situation in order to get off of that pressure to become somebody's manager. You might also choose to go freelance, to consult. Interestingly, as soon as you switch to consulting, your age becomes a plus. Instead of being a resource whose time left is dwindling, why would I train you? You've only got 5 more years so you retire. Suddenly, you're the senior person with a ton of experience who's going to bring all that experience in as a consultant. Something to think about. But we can be other people too. What do you think about old people and their ability to learn, get, or whatever else? Studies have shown that how you think about aging has a measurable effect on how you age. I pasted this sentence in because I couldn't believe it. People who believe negative stereotypes about old age in their younger years had a much greater chance of having a stroke or heart attack decades later. People who believe pessimistic concepts of old age, 50% more likely to be hospitalized in later life. 3 reasons come immediately to mind. 1, we gain most of our experiences about aging from our family. If you have a relative who did not age well, you probably think aging is crappy. And if that relative and you share genes, this could be your fate. But that's not the whole story. Swimming in a soup of stress hormones is bad for your body. If you start to lose capabilities and you're like, here we go, it's over the hill, the slow slide to death, I can see the grave yawning in front of me, that's really bad for your body. That's really bad for your cardiovascular system. But if you are optimistic and happy and you believe it's going to work out, then you have less stress. But also look, how many times have I stood in front of you, metaphorically, and said that something or another is a learned skill? It's one of my things. Sleeping on planes is a learned skill. Putting a baby to sleep is a learned skill. And getting older is a learned skill. And if you believe that, you'll go learn it. And you will do the exercises, and you will wear the sunscreen, and you will get your eyes checked, and you will get your ears checked, and you will sleep with your wrists flat, and you will have a happier and healthier old age as a result. So there's things you can start doing, including stop being other people about old people. Let's talk about our brains. Most people were much more worried about their brains than their bodies. I still meet people who wish they didn't have a body, who are like, if I could be uploaded into the computer, I would do it. But we're not parting with our brains because that's how we make our money. That's where our friends are. That's where our fun is. And to lose that, to have that taken from you, is terrifying. But it doesn't have to happen. Let's talk about remembering what you were in the middle of doing, knowing that you're on step 5 of 53 of whatever you're trying to do. First of all, a lot of things that feel like confusion are vision, hearing, and sleep. If you can't quite read, so you just go for it, YOLO. If you didn't hear, but close enough, you'll make mistakes. And then you'll be like, oh, I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I forgot that. You never saw that. You never heard that. So you didn't forget it. But then You build habit. Remember I said some old people are fusspots? You know? The thing by the door for the keys. It's easy to mock until you've spent 2 hours looking for your keys, right? The more trouble you have keeping things straight in your head, the easier it is to solve that by physical arrangement. If I need to take something with me, I have a place by the door that I go put it. When my kid was skating, if there was something I had to take to the arena, I would put it in her skate bag. And then I would forget all about it. I used to have to pay her coach with a physical check. I'd write the check, put it in her skate bag, forget all about it. She'd get to the arena, open her skate bag, oh, here's a check for Judy. And the coach would get paid. I didn't have to remember anything. Set yourself an alarm, set yourself an appointment, write scripts to automate things, right? We have this technology, we have the ability to do these things. And there shouldn't be a simple 27-step procedure to do anything, right? Like whoever's doing that, stop doing that, especially if it's not a physical piece of paper that you're checking the 27 steps off. It's not realistic to say that everyone should be able to remember that. A lot of men tell me that they don't multitask, that women multitask, right? That women can debug things with a toddler on their hip, and it's kind of true. But multitasking can really let you down. And it may be something where you need to adopt a different work style, right? You're listening to a meeting mostly, but this is a good time to deal with those emails that haven't been filed. And then you realize, I haven't heard anything from the meeting for 10 minutes, right? Recognize it and stop. Just do the meeting. I've started watching talks at much higher speeds than I used to because I need all my cognitive ability to follow. At 1.5 or double speed, depending on the speaker, I need to see them because I need their movements to help punctuate what I'm hearing. I need the slides because that's repeating what they're saying, and I can follow. At single speed, it's boring, and I'm like, what's going on Twitter? You know? So I don't do that. Just watch it in half an hour or 45 minutes instead of an hour, and you will actually watch it and retain it. I mentioned ADHD. If you know some people who have ADHD, if you know some people who are on the autism spectrum, or if you have access to these people via the internet, and I assure you that you do, their brains fight them all the time. That's their life. They get up in the morning and their brain is not letting them do the things they want to do. And boy, oh boy, do they have coping techniques. And here's the deal. You don't need a license, okay? If somebody tells you, here's what really helps me, and you try it and it really helps you, no one's going to knock on the door and say, I don't think you're officially allowed to use that ADHD technique, right? So there's a great group of people to learn from, to not forget things, to not super hyper-focus and not come out for 6 hours, right? Lots of interesting techniques you can learn from other people. Now, if you're old enough, you get these ads for things where you're supposed to like find words in the snowflake or whatever. And they've been studied. And if you play them regularly, you will get better at them. But that's the only thing you get better at. It doesn't improve your short-term memory. It doesn't improve your creativity. It doesn't improve maybe your mood if you're proud of your streak or something. But things do help. Any learning you enjoy helps all of this. Not just learning, but like remembering and having a working set and whatever. So if you would like to learn to paint watercolors, if you would like to learn Spanish, if you would like to learn Rust, if you're going to enjoy it, not as a duty, not as an obligation, it will help everything. Also, reading, but only if you're reading for joy, which I love. And I reached a point in my life, everyone my age has reached a point in our lives where we forbade our family from giving us books anymore. Like, I have there's a Japanese word for dying because your to-read file falls on you. I have that pile. And then I'm like, no, I'm going to start reading the books. And so in places where I used to be on my phone, I'm reading the books. And reading for joy helps all of this. Twitter will be there tomorrow. Like, okay, yeah, today is a little unusual, like world news-wise, but most of the time, you don't need to doom scroll. And if there's a book that will make you happy to read it, it doesn't have to be fiction. You know, I love historical books like the History of Nutmeg. That's a fun read for me, but you do you. Because it's just always more new, more different. No, we don't do that, we do this. That was 2022. Who does that anymore? We got a whole new way. You could learn it. You could learn it. The issue is not that you can't learn it as you get older. The issue is you don't want to learn it as you get older. You know you can learn it. We start in school learning how to learn, and every day we get better and better. How do I remember this? How do I connect that to that other thing I used to do, but this is the opposite, or it's different, or it's better, or it's something? Sometimes our problem is that we have an identity. I am a SVN user. I am a C++ programmer. I am a Windows person. And you are all losers because you don't do those things. And then I have to learn a different thing? Like what? And then you fight that because you still want to be you. But embracing change is the only real way to move forward most of the time. Even if you don't change your tools, you may need to change the way you think and the way you approach your work. So if you make your identity what you do rather than what you do it with, you can move on and start using the new tools and still being you and still doing the good things. The hurdle is not learning it. Well, other than the Git command line thing, I don't know how that works. You go to the person. You know there's a person, right? There's a Git person in every team. You're like, I don't know what I did. And they're like, just type this. And then you go, oh, let me write that down. And then you go back, you type that. Oh, it seems like it's working. Okay, thanks. But other than that, you can learn all the rest of it. People were really worried about their emotions, which made me happy, because I did a whole talk on emotional code, right? And now here a bunch of programmers surprised me by saying, actually, my emotions are one of my major aging worries. I'm worried that I'm going to be grumpy. I'm going to be impatient. I'm going to be cynical. And I'm going to, I don't have time for your junk. I want to think about something else. I want to see what's happening on Twitter. These don't have to happen. Some of us are sweet and generous and kind. And we grow up to be old people who are sweet and generous and kind. And you don't have to be a grumpy old man. You don't have to be a grumpy old lady. But also, it's really hard to be sweet and generous if you're desperate, if you're one paycheck away from losing your house, if you're undersaved for retirement, but you don't dare give up your health insurance if you're in the States, if you're in pain all the time, if your old age is not working out the way you wanted, it's really hard to have the energy to give anything of yourself to anyone else. When you put on your own oxygen mask first by, in your 20s, building up resources, both financial, emotional, and physical, you will be in a better place to be warm and generous and open and giving when you're older. But some people are not nice. And they're not going to magically get nicer because they got to retire. If you think you're not as nice as you could be, start working on that now, just the same as any other long-term planning you might be doing. It's quite possible to just learn how to be generous, learn how to be thoughtful. It can be done. Don't assume your personality will flip. My experience is that everyone's personality intensifies. People who are a little selfish become incredibly selfish. People who are a little grumpy become thermonuclearly grumpy. And people who are warm become like they just radiate warmth. So figure out what you would like to intensify about yourself. Most people say they want to be calm. They want to be peaceful. They want to be happy as a base. Just wake up in the morning happy. Go through your day mostly happy. By and large, we don't do that for a lot of reasons, including that we're a little bit embarrassed about that. Like, that's kind of cringe, right? If you would like to be peaceful and calm and happy, the number one thing is that you kind of know where things are going. You're monitoring your plan and you're following it. Also, don't be in pain. The number of people who tell me they are just in pain from when they wake up to when they go to bed. And some of them are happy people, which Points to them, because I couldn't do that. Okay? Sorry, that's the exercising thing again, but it's also the eating right thing and the sleeping properly thing and a whole pile of other things, okay? Be kind, it's in our code of conduct for a reason. Not just to other people, to yourself. Recently, someone I love made a mistake, which was really not a big deal, but could have been, and could not stop beating herself up about what could have happened, until I finally said to her, give yourself the grace you would give a friend who made that mistake. That's a very hard thing to do. Did you learn yoga? What about the Tai Chi? You see the people in the park? They're doing the Tai Chi. I'm always feeling like, I'd kind of like to do that. Going and forest bathing, going for walks, learning watercolors. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this stuff. It's cliche, but it's cliche for a reason. It helps a lot of people. So if you want to do it, and you've got time because the kids have moved out or you've got money, okay. You don't have to. You'll get older whether you learn Tai Chi or not. Figure out what's going to make you happy, because that's your goal. This is your aging process. A lot of people told me, I kind of can't be bothered to work. I just don't see the point. I don't want to learn new stuff. Oh, another revolutionary project that will change the whole company. Okay, good. Right? Woohoo, yeah, I'm in. Like a lot of can't be bothered. Sometimes it was because they didn't need the money. They could stop working any day. But other times they needed the money. They had to keep showing up, but they just aren't enjoying any of it. Okay. If you were my friend and you came to me and said, this is how you feel about work, I would say, what do you like to do? What lights you up? Do that. You only get one life. Figure out how to do that. For money if you need money, and not if you don't. Some people are really scared to touch that dream of what do you really like to do. Because you'll feel a loss. Once you acknowledge that that's what you would really like to do, the gulf between here and there is going to hurt. But that's what will take you across it. Now, you don't have to. Look, we all know someone who was the last. I used to know 2 people who were the last AS400 programmers. You know, that's good money. Because the company cannot get rid of that machine, and nobody else even knows what it does. That's a choice. You can choose that. And then you know what? You will not have to learn the new system. You just sit behind your little screen and work on the thing you've worked on since 1972, and we're all going to be fine. I mentioned before, you don't have to become a manager. You can find a technical ladder. You can freelance. And if you don't need the money, you can volunteer. Actually, if you don't need the money, you can freelance, because that's sometimes how that works. The thing is, if you're freelancing, you got to do a lot of stuff that's not whatever it is you want to do. So if you want to program or you want to make websites and whatever, but you're going to have to invoice and find clients and do marketing and things you may not want to do. If you're a volunteer, you can totally set your own terms. Find someone who needs some help and write them software if that's what they need, or help them choose software. If you're running a conference, you have to choose approximately 73,000 pieces of software, none of which talk to each other. And someone who knows all that stuff and tells you which ones to use, super valuable. And that's something you could offer to any number of nonprofits. Your life should have these things in it: joy and play and love. And when I look at people who are a couple generations younger than me, I do see that they play more. I think I was socialized not to play, because you're a grown-up now, and you set aside childish things. But don't take time for play. This joy and play should permeate your day. There are little joys. A flower on the way to work, a green build. There are little happinesses. Sometimes the reason you feel bored, disconnected, and unmotivated is you're not taking any of that dopamine that the world is offering you every minute. Start looking for those things. Maybe suddenly you'll feel a lot more connected. I was taught, love what you do and you'll never work a day in your life. That's not the same as do what you love. Love what you do can be a choice. Connect with it and really value it, things will get better. A lot of people love that I solve puzzles, I fix problems, I make things better. Enjoy that, love it. That's what you fill your day with, terrific. Other people are like, because of me, people get the correct dose of radiation when they come for their cancer treatment. That should make you feel good. Or the plane stays in the air or whatever. Like, try to connect yourself to that and remember what you're here for. Because how you spend each day is how you are living your life. I want to take a small detour. This is that C.S. Lewis. You're never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. I mentioned that some people leave this industry and that that's not always bad. Sometimes, when you look long and hard at what you do and why you do it, you discover you don't want to be an aging programmer. You want to be an aging cook, or an aging truck driver, or an aging farmer. And that's cool. I have seen some second acts that have brought such joy and delight, not just to the person who made the change, but to everyone around them. You know, to have someone in her 30s say to me about our friend, I've never seen my dad so happy. And she was including her own wedding day, you know. She's never seen her dad so happy as now that he has a totally different job than he used to have. Don't assume you have to follow the path you're on if there's a better one for you. Sleeping. This is the debugger. You know, come on. This is when we solve. You wake up and you go, oh, I get it. You've got to sleep. You heal. Children grow. You get better when you're asleep. And look, some people as they age need more sleep. And some people need less sleep. It's just a thing. It's just biology. Okay? It doesn't have a moral component. The people who need 10 hours are not lazy slug-a-beds. The people who need 6 are not pure and noble. They just need less sleep. Don't feel guilty for taking the sleep you need. They did a study where they got people sleep better. And if they got people 1 month of good sleep, those people felt 6 years younger. And in less than a week of bad sleep, they felt 5 years older. Get the sleep you need. I'm not a big sleep hygiene fan. If you have sleep problems, it's easy to find stuff about sleep hygiene on the internet. I'm more a fan of sleep joy. You know, I think a comfortable bed, things in your room you like to look at, scented candles because it's a reassuring smell, music, why not? I think all of that's fine if that helps you sleep. If sleep hygiene works for you, cool. But if it's not, try sleep joy. It's also a possibility. But no matter what we do, if we're lucky, we will eventually have to live with limitations. You understand the only alternative to living with limitations is dying when you're perfectly healthy. Those are your options. Of course you would rather that you could stay up until midnight. Of course you would rather that you could run up 10 flights of stairs, that you didn't need a brace, that you didn't need a cane, that you didn't need glasses. Pretending that you don't will make those limitations hit you so much harder. So wear your glasses. Yeah, someone might tease you and say, you're far too old to be wearing glasses. That's what happened when I started putting on readers in like restaurants. The people I was going to dinner would be like, what? Why do you need that? And like, hey, to see the words so that I don't just order what the person before me ordered, which I don't really want, but I can't read the menu, right? Wear your glasses. Wear your brace. Take your cane. If you will not be able to drive yourself back, either because of night vision problems or because you'll just be too tired at the end of the event, arrange in advance how you're going to get home again. And if you need a nap, I am so pro nap, let me tell you. I need 10 or 12 hours of sleep a night, not because of my age, but because of not dying. I'll take it. But one of the consequences, it's not a side effect because I'm not being treated anymore, but one of the consequences of my treatment is fatigue. Okay. Cool. If there's an evening thing, I go have a nap. It's better than going and falling asleep and not really being at the thing. right? Go to the thing and enjoy the thing by doing the prep in advance that lets you go there despite your limitations. Because you were going to have to do it within your limitations. Like, you don't get to turn that off. You don't get to suddenly be able to run upstairs when you couldn't. But I do also need to tell you this saying in our house, it's not always thing one. Thing one for me was cancer. Thing one for someone who's old is being old. It's easy to think that everything that happens to you, well, that's the deal. I'm old now, so I can't do that. My conversation about a month ago with someone who told me she had a friend who was in her 50s and couldn't get up a flight of stairs without having to stop to catch her breath. And said, well, you know, I'm 50. But she mentioned it to her doctor, and her doctor's like, that's not actually a 50 symptom at all. And now she has a stent in her artery, and she can go up all the stairs she wants, okay? It's not always thing one. You can still injure yourself. You can still catch a disease. You can still have side effects of your meds. And the reason you need to know that is those are fixable things. I had a terrible problem with one of my knees. It's my clutching knee. I spent decades driving the 401 in rush hour in a standard transmission, and I figured I just wore that knee out. Mentioned it to my doctor. She said, no, you've injured your knee. And I had outpatient surgery, and I don't have a problem with that knee anymore. Okay? Things can be fixed. Not everything, but it's worth at least finding out. It's not always thing one. Oh, you know, I'm old, so I'm in pain all the time. I just can't think, you know, that happens. You know, I just can't do that, whatever that is. Don't settle for that. It might not even have anything to do with being old. Also, you can develop new things, which I think is profoundly unfair, but true. Like I'm allergic to stuff I didn't used to be allergic to. Who does that? That's not fair at all. Like I signed up for a particular body, and then it's like, you can't eat that. But I like that. So. Now, money. Anyone have a number? You know your number, right? I can retire when I have X in the bank. You should know your number. If you have no clue, your number is, after inflation and taxes, I can expect to return blah percent. People are conservative or hugely optimistic, but they pick a number. And so and I need an income of, so if blah percent of X is then that tells you what X is, okay? You should know your number. Even if you're currently at 0, you should know what you're aiming for. Then you can divide by how long you have to save. Now, obviously, the sooner you start saving, the longer it has to compound. But the younger you are, the harder it is to save. Right? So if you work out that you need to save a quarter of your salary, you may not be able to part with a quarter of your salary right now. But as time goes by, some of your expenses are going to go away. If you're paying for daycare, once they're in their 30s, they need very little daycare. I'm not saying they're no trouble at all, but you get raises, and you generally are going to get raises that are faster than inflation. Now, a lot of people make up for that by deciding they really need a whole pile of stuff with their raises, but if that's not what you do, you may find that now you can save. It's not 25% of your salary anymore, it's 20%, and it's easier to save. But also, we slow down on buying things. Not everybody buys a house and lives in it for 30 or 40 years, but the rate at which you buy like furniture is going to go down. The rate at which you buy kitchen doodahs is going to go down. So some of your other expenses will start to shift away. Never too soon, though, to start saving. There's a thing about RSPs where it's like one person puts in a certain amount of money from age 20 to age 28, and the other person doesn't put anything until they're 28, and then puts the same amount in. At what point will that person catch up? And the answer is never. But then, how do you know that it's time to retire or that you want to retire someday? It was on the survey, but the questions or answers are just all over the place, and they varied hugely by how old the person currently was, right? Nobody wanted to retire. Even people in their 60s and 70s didn't want to retire in the next 5 years, but they didn't want it to be too far away either. Plenty of 20-year-olds thought 50s was a great time to retire. Not so many 40-year-olds felt that way. The key for most of us is, can I afford to retire? Will I have the money I need? But there were also people who were like, never mind the money, I'm just going to be so bored. Or if I wait too long, I won't be able to do that bike tour of Tuscany, right? So this is a word cloud that people gave me. See, now health is huge, but to be fair, about half of health was mixed with health insurance. A lot of Americans who answered my survey told me if they retired, they would not get health insurance from their employer anymore. So they had to stay employed in some way in order to be able to function. But you see, like purpose, boredom, you know, people are worried about what they're going to do. They're going to be bored and they're going to be lonely because they've spent decades with the only friends they have are friends they made at work. And if that stops, what is there? You got to stay socially engaged. Socially. Like, hi, how was your weekend? Did you get out to that thing you wanted to get out to? That kind of thing. You can do it at work. You can do it if you volunteer somewhere. And you could also do it if there's a hobby, which could be drinking beer. It doesn't have to, like, I'm not setting a high bar. As long as you've got to go somewhere to do it. Because you bump into people, right? And you've got a great topic. Like if your hobby is playing a sport and one of the people shows up with a new piece of equipment, you can be like, ooh, sweet name of equipment, tell me all about it, which you know they want to do, and you're having a chat. You need to plan this before you stop working and ideally start doing it, right, so that you can like segue. Move more of your energy into your non-work activities. About a third of the people who answered my survey were regularly volunteering now, and about another third were occasionally volunteering. So it is a very popular option, always welcome. Everybody wants volunteers. Yeah, I know it's a cliche that you get old and you go volunteer for stuff, but you know what? It's, again, a cliche for a reason. But I want you to think about what you're going to leave behind. When you step away from work, when you step away from your open source projects, when you step away from things, who's going to take over? How will you know that it's time? How are you going to run that handover? And even if you're not running a project, we all have a digital thing, right? Pictures, blogs, videos, documents. What's going to happen to all of those? Something to think about. You've got to plan your money, you've got to plan your time, but also plan your legacy and how things can keep going without you and how things can be useful to the people after you without you. Trust me, a giant folder of photographs organized by year in which the files are called img2345.jpg is not really helping people. I could have taken a lot of quotes from Gloria Steinem, a lot, but I took this one because I really like it. People ask if I'm passing the torch. I'm keeping my torch and using it to light the torches of others. That is totally how I want to stop working, share working. But talked a lot about planning, talked a lot about preparation. Sometimes those plans can be taken from you. Stuff just happens. And what happens next can genuinely be mitigated by resources. If you have been saving money, having money will fix a lot of things. I'll send a cab, for example. The physical strength to stay up all night at someone's bedside in the hospital. The emotional strength to cope with a loss or a diagnosis for yourself. The more resources you bring to these surprises, the better you will weather those surprises. A line of credit, the ability to get the person behind a desk to do what you want, boy, that's a skill. Some of us have it. Because you have a sudden, urgent priority that you did not plan for, but you could, in a way, prepare for. Because when you have those resources, you are preparing for that. But it's not just surprises, okay? You're going to go to funerals. A company is going to go away. Maybe it's a company you liked working for. Maybe it's a company you liked buying from. It's going to happen. And your friends. You're going to lose friends. Moving away is less of an issue, but it's still an issue. But also sometimes a friend will do something and you can't be friends anymore. Or worse, they'll come to you and tell you that you've done that. And people die. They're going to stop making your favorite anything. TV show, ice cream, I'm sorry. I'll just tell you in advance, they're going to stop making it. And there'll be something that you physically can't do anymore, even though you really like doing it. The only cure for loss is gain. It's a line written by a 24-year-old. Mind you, at 24, she'd already moved from the prairies to Toronto, married a guy mostly for career reasons, but partly so she could get her baby out of the foster home. Then he said he didn't want to raise her baby after all, so she gave her baby up for adoption, moved to New York, and then moved to California. So maybe she had lived a few things. But she's 80 now. She had an aneurysm that left her unable to walk or speak. And now she stands on stage and sings this line. Something is lost every day. That will happen no matter what you do. The something gained is up to you. Number one thing, make new friends. I know, that's hard. How do we make new friends? Well, work is good. Maybe that's the only reason I don't want to leave work, because how do I make friends? Listen, when you're 80-something, you need a 60-something-year-old friend. Big time. And a 40-year-old wouldn't hurt. Okay? They can carry stuff, they can drive you places, and they're full of youthful energy, and they want your wisdom. So it's a deal, okay? So the thing is, if you're 40 now, that friend is just in the maternity ward, so you can't, that'd be creepy, okay? You're gonna have to wait. But you gotta learn how to make friends. And if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, maybe start making friends with people who are 20 and 30 and 40 years older than you. It'll be practice, and you'll remember what you liked about it when the tables are turned. You can make friends at your hobbies. You can make friends in your neighborhood. Maybe you've never had time to talk to the people who live near you. You could try doing that. They might turn out to be nice people. Also, as you get older and your kids are not in the house anymore, you have opportunity to discover cousins and brothers-in-law and people like that who you never really had time for. Some of them are real nice, and you can have a friendship there. You got to try new things, right? New activities, new things to watch, new things to play, new things to eat, new people, new places to go, and things to see. Oh, some of them are going to suck. But if you try enough new things, some of them will turn out to be great and make a big difference in your life. If you're old enough to know who Ingrid Bergman is, I think it makes this quote sweeter. Getting old is like climbing a mountain. You're a little out of breath, but the view is so much better. And there are good parts, and I wanted to touch on them before I wrap up. Most of us have more time and money as we get older. We've had those raises. We're not making those same expenses. We don't have as many draws or pulls on us. This is the thing, man. Go in the grocery store, Fleetwood Mac, okay. Sometimes people assume things about you that are good. They think you're wiser than you are or more connected than you are. And you can get away with a lot of stuff. I remember being in the bank when they switched from the slips to the cards, and this old guy comes in, and I can't hear what the teller says, but he's like, "Oh, I don't hold with that." And the teller's face was like, "Meh." It turns out he didn't do the card. No, I'm not doing the card. And another teller came over and said, basically, "That's Mr. Johnson. Look, here's what you type in." Like, because if Mr. Johnson wants to, "I don't hold with that." Okay. And you can do that about a lot of things. You can just be like, "I don't want to do that." And if you were 20, people would be like, "It is a condition of employment." But if you're 63, people are like, "We can work something out." Yeah. And part of that is because you're not so scared. Like, you have seen the reorgs, and you have seen the transformational projects, and you have lost jobs and gotten different ones, and you've been through a lot, And a lot of it's worked out, has not been as catastrophic. You spend less time being afraid, less time cowering over, like, I got to get a good reference. Like, no, I am out of here. That's good. You have some strength, some power, some resilience, some resources. And if you want to give things up, nobody argues with you. I don't want to run that thing anymore. Well, okay, sure, we get it. You know, you're older now, you can't, that's fine. That may not be it. You just may not feel like doing it anymore. You know? People don't argue with you. They accept your choice is better. So here's what I want you to do. I'm sorry. You got to exercise for your body, for your brain, for your mind, for your mood. Save up your money, but not so much that you don't do anything now. Ride your bike on the weekends. Learn to paint on the weekends. Eat well, lots of fruits and veg, and generally take care of yourself. Sleep. Fix your eyes. Look after your ears. Make friends. Keep making friends. Never stop. Find some purpose that drives you, something you can connect to that makes you happy to be doing what you're doing. Because it's not too soon. No matter how young you are, it is not too soon to start. But also, it's not too late. It's never too late to be a happy aging programmer. Thank you. I don't think we have time for questions. I think we should go to break.
You'll be around.
I will indeed. I'll be here all week. I would say try the veal, but there's no veal.
There's no veal. Yeah, I want to say two things. One is, once again, Kate gives a talk which is basically written for me. And if you were in the crowd and you don't feel that it was written for you, I have two messages. One, every time life has forced me, and it's a number of times and in growing, to take some of that advice, uniformly I wish that I had done it the whole time. Uniformly. The other thing I have to say for people in that group is CppNorth needs you and needs your energy, so please contact me. We'll talk about speaker gift next time. Lunch here is today. Let's get on a break so that we can get back on schedule. Thanks, everybody.